Welcome to this episode of the Gunman. This video is part 2 in a 3-part series on this Porsche Cayenne, painted in Umbra Metallic is the name of the colour, and the paint code is LM8U. So the first video was dedicated to blocking and show you how to block primer. I decided to break it up into 3 videos so I could include a little bit more footage in each video. So this video is going to be masking and also prep work on the blends and also orbital sanding as well. So I've started off here by grabbing a damp cloth, wiping down all those blend areas and drying that off with a dry cloth. Make sure you use clean ones because you don't want to be grabbing contaminated rags and wiping contaminants over your panel. You could also use a wax and grease remover as well if there was any oil-based contaminants on there as well, but most of the time I've found just water is enough. So it's already been blocked down. That was in the other video. I'll put a link at the end so you can check that out if you've missed it. And so what I'm doing here is I'm using 320 on the orbital sander. I've also got the dust extraction there with the vacuum cleaner, and I'm using the interface pad, which is just a foam pad that comes in between the orbital sander and the sandpaper. It helps you not to get big marks from the orbital sander. So once I've used the 320 to go over the 180 is what I blocked it with in the other video. So if I was to block it with 240, I could use 400 to sand down the 240, the big 240 scratches, but being that I've gone a bit deeper with the 180 scratches, we want to use something a bit coarser again. So next up here, I'm using the softback sanding sponges to sand the edges. I've also already gone over those edges with the 240 or the 180 that I blocked it with to make it so that it sands down a lot quicker when I'm using the 500. So next up, I've got 600 grit on, and I'm doing the blends. So I've sped it up to 2 times speed. The whole video is at 2 times speed just to enable me to get more footage in and stop it from getting too long. And I did edit out certain spots just to for you can still see exactly how I'm doing it. So just making sure that we haven't missed any bits of the trim work there. But ideally we would take those trims off, but these cars especially difficult to pull them off. It's pretty much pull the whole door apart. To get the door handles out, they're easy to pull out, but some of these trims on these cars are quite difficult to pull off. So and at the end of the day, we are determined on what we do by the insurance companies. They try to screw us down every single dollar, so we've got to try and cut a few corners here and there when necessary, while not making the job still a good quality. We still want to do good quality work, so, and we do good quality work. So once I've 600'd everything, you take note that I did the blends first. I would then go over 600 over the primed area last. So I'm then blowing it all off to get all that dust off. I can then re-inspect, make sure there's no stone chips or any scratches that I may have missed. It turns out there wasn't on this job, so I didn't have to fix anything. And next I'm using grey Scotch Brite here, Scotch pad, and I'm going around all the edges first with this. You could skip this step and go straight over with those 800 grit softback sanding sponges. You can see in my left hand there, which is what I'm using now. But sometimes the Scotch Brite gets into the little corners a bit easier. So this 800 grit sanding sponge I'm using will remove those 600 grit, which is what I used on the orbital sander. Lots of people like to use 800 or even 1000 when they're doing blends, which that's fine. I've just found that 600 cuts it down a little bit quicker and you'll use less materials on the sandpaper, which they're not overly expensive for one, but if you do 3 to 4 cars a day like I do over a year, that's going to end up amounting to a fair bit of sandpaper. So just going over all those blend areas with the 800 grit. As I mentioned before, you want to go over your blend areas first and then go over your primed areas after, because you can end up with some primer from the primed part over on that blend, and it can end up making it go a bit smoky. It can go a bit of a milky effect underneath it. So once I've got all them parts done, I've then unmasked it, pulled the masking off. That was just so that I didn't hit the mouldings and the other paintwork. And then I'll re-blow it off again, give it a nice blow off. You could decide to wipe it down with a rag or some wax and grease remover prior to masking, but I've done it both ways, and I've found it's not really necessary. The jobs seem to come out exactly the same whether you do it or you don't do it. So follow these steps for the best results. I've been doing this for a long time. I'm in my 15th year now, so and I still love it. Obviously, I wouldn't be making videos and spending all my personal time on making videos if I didn't enjoy it. So what I'm doing inside here is what we call a false edge masking. So I've flipped that edge over and then put that over to enable a little bit of paint to come up under there, so it's not a dead straight hard edge. You can also use some foam tape inside there, just, mainly because I don't use it because the brand that we have never seems to stick, and the paint supplied only has that one brand, so I don't use it, and that was the J tape. So J-tape foam tape is no good. I'm sure they've got some other good products on the market, and they actually do, like the trim tapes and stuff like that, but their foam masking tape's no good for me. You may find it different in your climate. It could be something to do with the climate over here in WA. It's a bit too hot and it's just ruined the stickiness on them. So we're just going around and masking up the rest of this door jamb. So that's right to close now. And now I've got the car in the booth. I think I was waiting for the booth. That's why I started masking outside, and then we're going around continuing to do the masking. Just back masking inside all of these areas. And if you hang around for a bit longer, there's actually been a guy asking me for a long time. He wants me to do a demo of how to mask up the fuel filler flap on BMWs, and these are pretty much exactly the same fuel doors as what they have on the BMWs. Most of these European cars have this similar fuel doors. They are a bit of a prick to mask up, a bit annoying, so hang around and I'll show you exactly how I do it. So hopefully this guy that's been asking finally gets to see how I do it. And we're just back masking all up these top edges as well. You could do the false edge, but I've found that if you pull it back off the edge a touch, then it's not necessary up the top there. Make sure we do all those mouldings. You notice I did the front area as well prior to closing it, because you can't get the tape in there correctly if you do it before. If you do it after you've closed the door. So then just going around and pulling this tape down, and this is how I do the front edge in between the fender. So you're making it nice and tight, and that's actually sitting up underneath the lip of the door. So that will not enable any paint to actually come through. Subscribe to my channel if you like my videos. I've decided to recently start doing 3 uploads a week, so I'm going to make a bit of a schedule and start putting videos up every Sunday, Wednesday and Friday, and hopefully I'll be able to stick to that. It's if I cannot, it will only be because I don't have the time to edit the videos. It's not because I don't have the footage, because I've got loads of footage. So this is the start bit of how I master the fuel filler flap. So I'm just getting a bit of wax and grease remover. You can use thinners if you wish, and I'm just wiping it on, then wiping it off. I'm then leaving it for 5 minutes to make sure that any of the liquid that's left behind will actually dry up, because if there's any liquid left behind, it will not stick. So I'm putting the plastic over the car here, and I'm then starting to tape it down. Once the rest of it's all taped down, I'll then come back to the filler door. So yeah, I'm just using a nice sharp razor blade here, cutting around all those edges and making sure that we don't actually go in too far and cut into the paint itself or any of the mouldings. I've seen people do that, so be careful not to do that. So there is another couple of options of doing masking up. Back in the day, like in the olden days when I started, we always used to use paper and put the paper down first, and then we'd put the plastic up underneath the paper. But I think this is a better way. It's far quicker than, you might use a little bit more material in the tape, but you're then saving it in the paper. So this is quite a good way of masking with the straight over with the plastic. I've put a couple of guys onto it. They said, "Oh, I never used to do it this way," and they are happy with the results they've been getting. It speeds it up a bit, and it actually, I've found that you get a little bit less dust in your paint jobs, because the plastic these days has a coating on it on one side, which is another thing you've got to be careful to get it up the right way. If it's upside down, then the paint will start flaking off as you paint, so make sure you don't do that. And yeah, you should get some good results doing it this way. I've found you do get less dust because it's got that coating, and it's also got some anti-static, so the paint will stick to it. And just going around the rest of the edges, I cut some of the footage out just to stop the video from getting too long, but there's a couple more minutes left in it, so the next upload will be the paintwork on this car. There'll be a link to that at the end here too. So this is what I was talking about earlier in masking up the filler door. They are quite difficult, but the best advice I can give is the see how on the inside edge how it's folded over. If you've got too much pressure on that outside edge, well then it's going to want to lift up. So you want to make sure it's all folded over on the inside edge, so it's not pulling too much pressure and wanting to pull the outside edge back up. And look, sometimes you're just going to get overspray in there. It's just one of those things, because you can't get the edge lifting tapes in there because they're too tight. So the best way is just to, if you get a bit of overspray, you get a bit of overspray, and then just use a bit of thinners rags on it the next day and scratch it off, because it is only rubber. The paint's actually not really going to want to stick to it anyway. So this is the car once it's finished off. I'll whack those couple of links here. Check them out if you haven't already seen them. At the very end there's a subscription link and a couple of other links to a couple of my other vids on a nice VESS Commodore Ute. Thanks again for watching, and this has been another Gunman production. Goodbye.